Sideline Network, and today we're on the NFL and go through picks 1 through 32. We're gonna do it video by video. We'll spend a good 15-20 minutes on each video, basically just going around how the team did last season, what they need in the draft, free agency, and all that good stuff. So today we'll be talking about the Titans, pick number 1 overall. They went 3-13 last season. In the past 5 seasons, 27-53 with a winning percentage of .338. So, definitely a lot that they need to improve on after a few seasons ago making it to the playoffs. Mike Mularkey will take over as the head coach, replacing Ken Whisenhunt. He was the interim head coach the last few games of the season last year after they let Ken Whisenhunt walk. Tennessee had the 11th ranked defense last season, 27th in 2014. A lot can be said about Dick LeBeau coming in as a defensive assistant and sort of helping the Titans revamp that defense and that 3-4 that Dick LeBeau ran so often in Pittsburgh, along with Ray Horton. And after almost placing in the top 10 defense, they promoted Dick LeBeau to co-defensive coordinator. Offense was the struggle last year, 30th offense in the league, and you would have thought after the first game, after Mariota had the unbelievable performance against Tampa Bay, made Jameis Winston look silly, you thought they would have gotten on a roll, and sort of Mariota had that Cam Newton type season. It didn't happen. Mariota played 12 games, 4 he missed though because of injury, and you got to keep your quarterback healthy. Let's face it. If you don't keep your quarterback healthy, you're not going to win very many football games with Zach Mettenberger and Alex Tanney. And Mariota had a good season, 62.2% completion, almost 3,000 yards, 19 TDs, 10 interceptions, and 2 fumbles. He averaged 234 passing yards a game and 1 passing TD a game, which for a rookie, coming into an offense, expecting high expectations, number 2 overall selection, it's I assume, I'm not going to act like I know what that feeling's like, but it can be nerve-wracking, to say the least. 61 quarterback rating, not too bad for a guy that a lot of questions, could he handle, an NFL pro-style offense. So definitely, the future is bright with him. A couple questions that I really want to focus on. Who's the running back? I mean, Antonio Andrews, Bishop Sankey, David Cobb. Heck, Mariota had 200 yards. He was, I think, 3rd in the standings as far as team rushing yards go. David Cobb is a guy that the last 2 games of the season got the bulk of his carries and did well with it. The week 16, 71 yards and a touchdown. And then the final week got the bulk of the carries, and he looks to be a potential starter. I was high on him coming into the draft last year out of Minnesota. Good production, guy that really runs hard through the tackles, can bounce outside, got decent speed, to hit the outside. He played in 7 games, really came on late, didn't really have the opportunity, only averaged 2.8 yards a carry. But nonetheless, he can show flashes of being a starting back in the NFL. Do you go elsewhere in free agency? I don't know. It depends on how well you can trust a second-year player who didn't get hardly any carries last year. And another question is the receiving core. Obviously, Dorial Green-Beckham was sort of that, I don't want to say black horse receiver in the draft, but some guy that a lot of people were high on just fell because of his off-the-field, issues and all that. He was a 2nd-round pick. Kendall Wright, a 1st-round pick, has not really come on, as they hoped after he came out of Baylor a couple years ago in the 1st round. Justin Hunter, he's been probably the most disappointing wide receiver out of any of the entire Tennessee roster. His production is just absolutely. I'm not sure what the exact numbers are on that, but they are low compared to where he was drafted. And that was the year where Cordero Patterson went first round. There was a big deal about, oh my goodness, Tennessee's got these massive receivers, fast and can jump. Justin Hunter just hasn't lived up to expectations. And then on the defensive side of the ball, my question is with Zach Brown. He was a second rounder, and I don't know how Tennessee fans think about him. I haven't heard his name a whole lot. In fact, Avery Wilson was a guy that actually overtook him on the depth chart. As far as what I can see, I didn't watch too many games of theirs, but from what I saw is that Zach Brown was actually behind Avery Wilson and Wesley Woodyard, last year. So is he a bust? I don't know. I haven't watched exactly a whole lot of tape on him. However, if you're behind a guy that was drafted in I think the 4th round of the draft, I don't know what else you can say. Avery Wilson was drafted in 2014 in the 5th round. So obviously there's some question marks there that will obviously need to be answered. Some key free agents, Byron Bell. I don't know if you would re-sign Byron Bell. There's a big thing about Tennessee going with Laramie Tunsil in the draft, the Ole Miss tackle. So obviously Byron Bell may be expendable. Maybe you re-sign him for depth. I don't know, but if not, not a guy that's really re-signable, at least for the Titans, for where they're sitting in the draft. Sammy Hill, the D tackle, I don't know if he's a necessity to re-sign like Bell is. I don't watch the Titans game. I don't know what Titans fans think of Sammy Hill, but I imagine he can be upgraded in the draft. There's a lot of defensive tackle talent in the draft. If Tennessee wanted to go Joey Bosa, number 1 overall, I don't see it wrong with that. I know he's defensive end. Sammy Hill's defensive tackle, and there's a weight difference there. But D-line is something that the Titans could use. Maybe not an immediate need, but a possibility nonetheless. Al Woods, I'm familiar with him because I'm a Steelers fan, and I know that there was a upset feeling, so to speak, from Steeler fans when he left, because you felt like you lost some of that depth. Maybe not a starter in any defense, but definitely a good quality rotational guy that I think gave the Titans some good depth on the defensive line. And then we already talked about Zach Brown. I'd re-sign him because again, it gives you that. I don't necessarily think he's a bust. Like I said, I haven't watched a whole lot of tape on him. But nonetheless, a 2nd round pick, do you really want to throw him away? He might not be too expensive to re-sign. I don't know how much interest he's going to see somewhere else. That's up for a lot of other teams to see. And then Cody Sensabaugh, who a 4th round pick out of Clemson, really flashed to me in the nickel. I don't know exactly, like I say, I don't follow the Titans as much as obviously some Titans fans do, but a guy that I noticed quite a few times come up in games that I did watch very closely. So those are just some key free agents. There are guys everywhere that could be re-signable, but not really key free agents, as I would say. Maybe expendable, guys like that. And then some possible free agent targets. I want to narrow this down to just about 10 targets. And not all of these guys are guys that may hit free agency. I tried to keep the list to guys that potentially and probably will hit free agency, so we'll see about that. At running back, if they feel like David Cobb isn't the guy there, I could see Matt Forte. They have $45 million in cap space. Obviously, a 30-year-old back like Matt Forte, probably not a lot left in the tank. Won't have to sign him to a really long-term deal with a lot of money up front. He's probably more of towards the end of his contract, maybe a 1-year deal for a few $1 million. However that works, I'll let the cap specialist deal with that part of it. Alfred Morris. We all know what Alfred Morris is capable of. I mean, we saw that when he was a rookie in Washington, came out of nowhere. I believe 6th round pick. and just came in and stole the show. Really, that year, Doug Martin as well, the Tampa Bay running back, came out and just gave it a go, and really impressed. So Alfred Morris is a guy, he's fallen off. I haven't seen the production. I'll have to go look at the production, obviously. But a guy that, if you don't feel David Cobb is the guy, or Antonio Andrews or Bishop Shanky, a decent maybe option for them to go if they don't want to go in the draft early. At wide receiver, again, I don't know if now is the time to go drafts, or now is the time to go for wide receiver in free agency. However, there are a couple that I could see, Ruben Randall being one, maybe not a guy that really has a lot of production. I think he's a quality receiver, maybe a decent number 3 guy, definitely not a number 2. But with Justin Hunter being a bit of a disappointment, I could see Ruben Randall sort of getting in there, and then Mohamed Sanu, the number 2 also in Cincinnati, production I think went down from what I saw, but a guy that is capable of being a number 2 guy, definitely not a number 1, but I could see him being a number 2 guy. Kelvin Beachum, I understand, with the Laramie Tunsil argument, do they take him, do they trade back? Kelvin Beachum is a guy who tore his ACL early in the season, and his value probably would have been a lot higher had he not injured torn his ACL. Obviously, the guy is undersized, a bit underweight, but no doubt has stood his ground against some of the better talents in this league. Me being a Steelers fan, I know him very well, and I just, the guy just doesn't get overmatched, it seems to me. So I would look there. A guy, if you're looking for more pass rush, I didn't really see a lot out of Derek Morgan, 4.5 sacks from what I saw. Brian Orakpo on the other side, 7 sacks, and he was tied with Jarrell Casey for the sack lead on the Titans. So I don't know if you really want to. Obviously, Chris Long's a 4-3 defensive end, not necessarily an outside linebacker, but if they want to test the waters there, you always could. Jay Howard, Kansas City Chiefs defensive end, he would be more of the scheme fit that Tennessee would want and Dick LeBeau would want based off the 3-4 defense. A guy that I don't know too much about. I don't know if he was a rotational player, but I've heard his name quite a few times making plays. And in fact, I'll go right now and look up what he's been able to do in the last, I want to say, a couple of years. Definitely maybe an option to look at for the Titans. Regular season, guy had 5.5 sacks, 57 combined tackles. Looks to me, I'd have to watch some video on him. He was a 4th round pick in 2012 by Seattle. So, if you're looking for a rotational player, if you lose a guy that you want, like Al Woods, maybe you go after Jay Howard, who he is still pretty young, and you go for there, only 27 years old. So a guy there to look. And Jeremy Mincey, I understand that with the situation the Cowboys are in, losing, or not necessarily losing, but recently saying that they're done with Greg Hardy, and that Randy Gregory now is being suspended for 4 games. Jeremy Mincey looks pretty decent sitting there and has a lot of leverage to be re-signed, maybe just on a 1-year deal. An older guy, as far as I know, and definitely came in and was a quality piece for the Cowboys there for a couple of years, originally with the Jaguars. But I would say, these are some guys maybe not top of the line free agents, but guys that you could say, look, we need some rotational, help. Let's go get them. Nick Fairley is a guy that you get either, the real good or the real bad, the lazy or the real good. He signed a 1-year deal with the Rams, and I didn't really hear his name a lot when I was watching the Rams play, but maybe, like I said, rotational if they feel like he's improved. There's a replacement for Sammy Hill, that kind of stuff, and then maybe, I'm not saying it's a necessity. Obviously, he's getting older, but James Laurinaitis is another player that I could see the Titans looking at if they decide not to re-sign Zach Brown. It surprised me definitely that he was cut because it felt like he was still producing. I agreed with his comments that he was surprised that he felt like he was still a good player despite getting up there in age. So these are just some guys that